Wow, it looks very big from up here. Have we got my picture? Oh, well, anyway, all right. How do you even begin to talk usefully about the future? We've already heard from Eden that it's a collaborative enterprise. It's not waiting, whooshing, coming down the road towards us. We're making it up as we go along. And if you talk about it, you change it. If you have a nifty idea like shareholder capitalism or the ownership of the means of production, you can change it in ways you might not be able to predict. Have we got my... ways you might be able to predict. This is painting by Don Davis for the space race in the 70s. And it was NASA trying to persuade everyone that the future would be awesome, silver suits and flying cars, and get them engaged with the space race. And when it didn't happen quite this way, I think we became a bit cynical, a little bit unsettled by the idea of thinking about the future. It's also possible that the row between, we talked about H.G. Wells earlier, the row between F.R. Leavis and C.P. Snow, when Snow said that Wells was this wonderful writer and Leavis was, I don't like him. And the result of that row, which became very heated, was that suddenly it became very unfashionable to talk about science properly. Leavis was accused by Snow of trying to take Rutherford out of popular culture and to put people like T.S. Eliot in and to outlaw science. And in a way, I think it worked. I think over the course of the last 100 years, say, there's been a division, and we haven't talked about the future optimistically for a while, which is a shame. You are in trouble if you start trying to talk about the future because you're extrapolating. And if you extrapolate essentially based on your own qualitative judgments, you start to go wrong. You make decisions based on yesterday and on your particular perspective, which inevitably is very limited. Obviously, you get into a discussion also about exponential change very quickly. Clearly, for the last, at least for the last 150 years, but probably for the last 400 years, one of the primary drivers of change has been technology, if not the primary driver. And in the middle of the 1900s, it was the washing machine which changed the world, because it released not just, it released women into the labor force and into education, combined with the effect of world wars and so on, it changed the face of the world, but not just in terms of gender, also in terms of class. Now, of course, technological change, underlying driver itself is digital technology and Moore's law, which is exponential. Every 12 to 18 months or so, processing power doubles. It's a guideline, but it still holds. Which means that if those things proceed in lockstep, next year will be twice as changey as this year, which I can sort of get behind. I can understand that. But 2023 will be 1,024 times as changey as this year. And this year was very changey. It was a great year to be a rat. Rats get all the best technology first, which bugs me. If you were a rat this year, if you were a fat rat, you could become thin by getting a gut bacteria transplant from a thin rat, which is cool. But beyond that, you could be networked with another rat through the internet from a slightly ungainly chip in your head, but never mind. And you could share your thoughts and actually cooperate in a very small way. That absolutely blew my socks off. I wasn't ready for that at all. Brain-machine interfaces, that sort of has been coming up, I think. I've been seeing those stories. And you see the arm moving when the guy is using just his brain, and it's extraordinary, and we know that there's a bit of feedback coming. But brain to brain, I think because I was trained as a philosopher, and we were always asked the question, is the color blue that you see the same color blue that I see? Oh, blimey. And the idea, the implication is that our brains might be mutually incompatible with one another, that basically I might be a Commodore 64 and you might be an Atari. I am old. But it turns out that might not be the case. Come with me then. Let's do a bit of this kind of thinking about that. If you can do that, suppose I have a degenerative brain disease, and what we do is we shove a chip in my head, and I carry a little box of grown brain matter around with me. And that does the processing for the part of my brain which is increasingly dysfunctional. Well, suppose I keep doing that. Suppose it works well enough that I just get more and more boxes. When I eventually fall under a bus, the boxes survive me. So who's inside them? Supposing it's very, very light, supposing what's in the box continues but doesn't communicate properly, what rights does it have? Who is it? Is it me? Is it my child? Will it grow if it's allowed the possibility into another human being, into a human consciousness? Who would that person be? Would they be like a calf, as in a calf from a glacier? Slightly stranger idea. Supposing I and a couple of friends get together and we mutually share a low-level connection all the time. And as we can, we increase the bandwidth until we're sharing thoughts all the time. We're doing bits of processing, cognition for each other. Ultimately, we become effectively a collective intelligence. And the unit, the overarching unit, is more important than any of the single pieces. That's interesting because it challenges the idea of individuality as being the defining feature of humans, which is a very strange idea. In any case, a single human being obviously cannot reproduce, cannot maintain and use language reliably. If you spend time by yourself without speaking, your language will get all gabbly. And requires, obviously, an ecosystem to provide oxygen, to provide food, and so on. So the idea that we are singular is already very weird. There was a time when the family unit was much more important than the individual. If you blur the lines between individuals like this, what do you get? Do you produce a society which understands personhood differently? And if you do you also get a different perspective on long-term issues? The fifth IPCC report is out, or coming out over the next while, and obviously it's talking in terms of 2100, 2200. If those dates are dates that you will live to see because you are a gestalt entity, or an entity kept in 16 boxes, those issues become much more pressing to you. If you perceive yourself as part of a unity with your gut bacteria and with all the animals around you and all the plants around you, then your stewardship of the environment is much more important to you than it is if you think of yourself as a single individual operating in a universe which you touch but don't necessarily affect and are not part of. And it's, again, a very 19th century idea that we stand alone. It's an error of the mind, of which we have a depressing number to deal with. I think one of the things that we'll see as we move ahead is more and more encounters between errors of the mind, bad maps, and the territory becoming more obviously not aligned with those maps. For example, okay, well, I was going to knock banks, but it's too easy. So let's do democratic government. We all, I would imagine, know about the smart crowd phenomenon, that large numbers of people working together under the right circumstances make better decisions than individuals, and indeed they can be uncannily accurate in estimations. By which rubric parliaments should be amazing decision-making machines. Raise your right hand if you believe that they are. From where I'm standing, you can see that there is literally no one with their hand up. Okay, obviously. The reason for that is because the crowds are broken. The way that our parliament is constructed literally embodies the ways in which you corrupt the decision-making process of a smart crowd. Tribalism, influence peddling, popularity, preferment, all these things are the things you must not have if you want a crowd to make good decisions. But we have the whip system, we have the party system, we have traditional politics, the consequence of which is that basically our parliaments amount to 3 or 4 people in a room yelling at one another, not a smart crowd. The job that Parliament is supposed to do, and the rules which constitute it, the constitutive rules which make the game, do not map the territory. They do not create an entity which fulfills the role it's supposed to fulfill. Similarly, because I can't resist, with banks. The problem with banks which we're experiencing right now is that they are like combine harvesters which have got really, really excited about mowing. And they just randomly run around the place mowing everything. And they keep all the grain and that's it. And mysteriously, the fields then start to look a bit grotty. And every so often, they just are barren. That's because those rule sets were defined, actually, with reference to, I guess, unspoken rules everybody knew. But the acceleration, perhaps, of our culture, or maybe it's just that the sell-by date has been reached, has meant that those encounters between the rule set and the reality, between the map and the territory, have become more painful and much more obvious to us. So I think as we look ahead, we will find ourselves with these encounters all around us all the time. But I think we can fix it. So here we are at Futurefest, and there's the background of NASA being wrong. Arthur C. Clarke was wrong, too. He said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Name one thing that could happen in front of you that you would insist was magical in origin rather than technological. When you've got science fiction writers writing, when they conceptualize deep future, they talk about igniting suns and traveling in time and all these extraordinary things. There is nothing that I can think of where I would reach for a magical paradigm rather than a technological one. He may have been right at the time, but I think we've shifted, and I think our perceptions have shifted, and our technology has shifted. But if he was wrong in an absolutely fascinating way, in a really, really valuable way. And that's what I would invite you to do, because I'm standing up here. You should all be standing up here as well. Is to be wrong in interesting ways. Please, for the next 48 hours at least, take off your mental tie, put your shoes somewhere else, walk around barefoot, and be unafraid to be silly. Be gloriously wrong. Since I just have time, I will do my own glorious wrongness. I occasionally, when I'm not writing novels and when I'm not doing this, I end up on stages a bit like this talking to the publishing industry, which can be a little bit depressing talking about its future. It shouldn't be, but it can be. And the thing that I invite them to consider is that the future of the book is to be found in genetically modified giant tortoises with libraries of paper books on their backs, roaming the earth. And every time they meet, there's a literary festival. And they come to your door. If you're old enough to remember when the ice cream van used to come round and you'd hear dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Incidentally, a friend of mine's mother told her that when it played music, that meant they had no ice cream left. That is diabolical. But no, so the tortoises are like that. They come to your door, and this benign, enormous creature comes to your door and brings you the book that you were looking for and didn't know you were looking for. It's absurd. It's clearly not going to happen. It's ridiculous. It's within the possible scope of the future, but it's definitely at the far end of the bell curve. But the reason that I propose it is because once I have said it, no one is frightened of saying something stupid in that room ever again. So I hope that my invocation of tortoises will free you of any last reservation you might have had. And you can enjoy Futurefest and make a future which is not just exciting and clever and polished and splendid, but also glorious and a tiny bit eccentric, because human beings, lest we forget, are quirky, and it's one of our saving graces. Be wrong in interesting ways. Thank you.